Good afternoon. Welcome to the refresher course for senior assessors and assessors of the CII National Award for Food Safety 2014. Dr. Indrani Ghosh, Principal Counselor Phase, and the faculty for this webinar today leads the Food Safety and Quality vertical of CII. She has been your award assessment facilitator ever since its inception in 2010, and you would all have met her in person when you attended the assessor training and the earlier refresher courses. Over to Dr. Indrani Ghosh.
Good afternoon, senior assessors and assessors. It's nice to be back with you once again. Today, this webinar is to provide you with an update on our achievements and milestones, introduction of new applicant sectors and categories in 2014, the revisions in the criteria checkpoints and the changes in the weightages, the number of assessment days that you need to have and the schedule that you need to follow to make it a successful assessment, the feedback on the earlier assessment reports and what more could we do to make them better, requirement of the on-site completion of the feedback report, scoring, and the executive summary. Also, the consensus meeting guidelines and the key dates. I must first start by thanking you all. You have been instrumental in contributing towards this vision of building capacity of the Indian food sector on the global standards of food safety and enhancing the competitiveness, creating the role models and identifying best practices for transforming Indian food industry to the food factory of the world, and in the process ensuring consumer health, hygiene and safety. The CII National Award for Food Safety has risen from strength to strength ever since its inception in 2010. The number of applicants, the percentage growth has been more than 600%. The number of trained assessors have grown by more than 500%. And to add to it all, last year we had the first ever street food participation in the awards 2013, where Sri Chandramouli once again gave away the awards. This model, where you have made your contribution, is a win-win model for the applicant and the assessor organizations. And when we actually looked at the statistics of the number of assessors participating and the applicants that have applied for this award, we found that it was more than 800% growth since 2010. Thank you, assessors, for making this happen. This year, we have introduced, with all your help and guidance, the feedback that you have given during your assessments last year, we have introduced two new sectors. One on the fresh produced fruits and vegetables, tea, coffee, spices, and another one is on the warehouse, wholesale and retail. The earlier categories of bakery, beverages, dairy, restaurants, catering, these still remain. The sizes and categories are small and medium, large, rising star. I think just a quick recall on what a rising star is. Rising stars are those companies, those units rather, which are 3 years or rather less than 3 years in operation. The capacity building has been by the way of developing in-house facilitators. This model that is being utilized in the companies, the assessment formats, provides a self-assessment tool to the company, and definitely there is the prospects of external recognition, a national level external recognition. The assessors of the award, now we have a pool of more than 160 food professionals coming from about 52 organizations. And last year, out of these 52, about 42 organizations contributed their assessors to take part in the assessments and also build in their in-house capabilities. Once again, a quick review of what goes into selecting the assessor team members. One is their exposure to global standards. Secondly is the sector-specific expertise through their experience, relevant training and qualification. They would have attended the 2 days CII assessor training course. Attendance in this refresher training is also a mandatory requirement. Performance in last year's assessment as captured by the assessor team members, their feedback of the assessor team members, as well as any feedback that we have received from the companies that were assessed. Another point that we take into consideration is a locational proximity of the assessor to the applicant unit, but we cannot commit on this. The degree of experience, auditing, production, quality, purchase. We are also taking help of technical experts and food professionals are also included, but they come in not as assessors but as additional supports. And we also try not to take organizations, we do not take applicants from competitor companies, and we try not to take ex-employees of organizations. However, if the company has no problems, ex-employees are engaged as assessors. Last year, we had 6 award winners, and these award winners are listed. There has been, and the 6 award winners came from the various sectors like the beverages, then it came from the dairy, it came from food service, it came from also the manufacturing. There were other levels of recognition, and as you know, as a senior assessor and assessor, you must know the various levels of assessment also. At the topmost level is the award trophy for outstanding performance, which is only 1 per sector per category. There is a commendation for significant achievement, which can be more than 1. There is the commendation for strong commitment to excel, which is also can be more than 1. Commendation for strong commitment to GHP was introduced last year, more than 1. And also letter of appreciation can be more than 1. This is basically the criteria that is used to recognize the applicants based on their performance, and this was last year's decision by the jury. Our jury members last year were Mr. Ravi Mathur, Dr. Gopi Ghosh, Ms. Harita Vashireddy, Professor Mishra, and Dr. U.K. Chatterjee. And the award committee members were Mr. Piruz Khambata, Mr. Vikas Mittal, Mr. Yogesh Pinali, and Mr. B. Tyagarajan. This is one of the most coveted and aspired for award, and as we said that we already had the street food, the hotels and restaurants, and the manufacturing till last year. And this year we have introduced the two new criteria, that is the wholesale warehousing, which is called criteria 4, and the primary production F&B only for fresh produced fruits and vegetables. We have not introduced it for the other primary productions. So this is the criteria 5. The award assessment criteria, so our table 1 has changed, it has been modified. We now have all the criteria mentioned here 1 to 5, and it also specifies which units or which organizations would belong to these criteria. Now you as the assessors would need to check against this table when you get your assessment application format, by us. When it is allocated to you and when you receive it, please first check whether the criteria is correct or not. The beneficiaries have been, as of now, the beneficiaries have been almost all the food sectors, excepting in primary production where we are only covering fruits and vegetables. Okay. Now, units of Indian organizations and also their overseas units. The purpose of telling you about this is that you would be going into the companies for assessment, and there can be many questions asked to you by the applicants. So this time, what we have decided is that we will provide the senior assessor with a very short PowerPoint presentation which they can present at the opening meeting. So it will have the template, so it could be uniform, and it talks about the award, it talks about the appeal systems, it talks about the disclaimers, and whatever needs to be covered in the opening meeting. Now, revisions in checkpoints and weightages. As such, in 2010 to 2011, there was a broad change. There was rather a very intensive change on the model. The model, by and large, that is the first figure on the left, it remains the same. The statutory regulatory requirement, product specific, PRP, HACCP, as well as the change management remains the same. However, there are last year some of these marks were changed. Even these broad marks for criteria 2 and 3 remains the same. We have upgraded the model with all the suggestions that we have received last year, and the models have all been upgraded. Some duplications have been removed. So now we have the 2014 model as well. We are showing the 2013 model here. The 2014 model will be ready by in another 1 or 2 days. Okay. Now comes the criteria 1. There has been a total change in the parameters and the scoring. We have used the codex guidelines, the draft codex guidelines for food vendors. And if you see, it is once again on 1000, and this will be applicable to the street food as well. And quite a few of you have done the street food assessment. So it has been made simpler. There is only on the statutory regulatory requirements, there is 100 marks allocated, which we were not doing earlier. We have also, reorganized the food safety practices, and we have taken into account, the waste, solid waste management. What are they doing about it? The appliances, which were there, but now it is more consolidated, and the flow is even better. And also the weightages have been modified in criteria number 1. Now comes criteria number 2 and 3. No change. It remains the same, but the checkpoints have been modified to make them simpler, and some duplications have been removed. There is a change in the general instructions, in the general instructions, and everybody is encouraged to read the general instructions, which will be sent to you when you receive the application document. Okay. The marks distribution. Now comes the criteria 4. This is a totally new introduction. This would be applicable to warehouses, wholesale and retail. So where, any wholesale or retail might have a warehousing associated with it, but all warehouses may not have a retail or a wholesale associated with it. So here there may be some not applicable checkpoints which the assessor will be able to easily identify. Now broadly, for statutory regulatory requirements and social compliance, we have allocated 100 marks. This was a suggestion by the jury as well last year. Okay. On the food safety practices, prerequisite programs, on the prerequisite programs, risk assessment, food safety management system structure, that's how we have allocated the score, 500, 100. Then sector specific GMP is also 100 here, and change management parameters is 100 here. So you will see that there is a difference in the way the scores have been allocated here, the weightages which have been allocated here. Now comes criteria 5. Just sorry for the interruption. I'll just take a break for for 1 minute. It's come. Yes. Back to criteria 5. The social here also in criteria 5, this is meant for farms which are doing primary production of fruits and vegetables. Maybe they have some grading, some packing, some transportation also along with it. So if these parameters are also included in it, supposing the grading, packing, these are not there, then the assessor has to identify them as not applicable. So this one is based on the global gap, India gap standard, and we have again kind of consolidated them, made it simpler, so that since it is the first time for primary production, if farms are applying, we made them a little simpler for them to apply and also do the assessments. Okay. Sector-specific good manufacturing practices. We have removed the term utilities from here because utilities was getting addressed in the prerequisite programs and it was becoming a little duplication. So utilities have been removed from this. Otherwise, sector-specific good manufacturing practices must be examined with respect to the technology, equipments, methods, material of construction related to the bullet points. That is air quality, pathogen monitoring, mistake proofing, primary production of control, water treatment technologies, the ETP and the waste management, any sensitive ingredient release. But this is more as per the sector specific, not the generic one. So there must not be a duplication of the prerequisite program findings and the sector specific good manufacturing practices. Once again, we found that improvement of FSMS and change management initiatives are sometimes not differentiated by the assessors. So section B3 in the management system structure is on improvements, whereas change management initiatives is anything other than those ISO 22000. Just to explain this, change management initiatives would be system standards other than ISO 22000. It could also look at the employee involvement programs like the 5S, PMs, how they run their cross-functional teams, how they run their quality circles, what has been the output of the quality circles, what has been the output of the small group activities. It could look at the tools and techniques that the company is using and also on the integration of all these tools and techniques. They should not be like, flitting like grasshoppers, flitting from one tool to the other. What is the connection? What is the linkage between the tools and techniques that they are using? Also, if they are using any business excellence models and others. What I also want to mention out here is that the sustainability aspects, also are taken care of in this section. So we have introduced some tables, for you to capture those information. Now comes the assessment guidelines. Please note that if you look at this particular flow chart, you will find that the rigor of assessment is like this. We spent more than 100 man-hours per unit. Now how does that happen? You see the first 4 in blue are more of the administrative work that is happening in the CII secretariat. Okay. The assessor training and the refresher training is on the capacity building of the assessors. The 4 green boxes are where the actual assessments are taking place. So if you see the 4 green boxes here, the 4 green diamonds are really representative of the 4 stages of assessment. One is the site visit, and there itself, we have around 100 hours assessment because, like we would say, 100 hours assessment not only on the site visit, but there are feedback reports which are reviewed for consistency. Then comes the award committee meeting to verify the award conduct. Then there are jury meetings which finalizes the winners. So if you look at this whole process, these 4 diamonds contribute to more than 100 hours, of assessment, man hours of assessment. Then we have the awards night, and after the awards night, within 15 days, the feedback reports are dispatched. So now I'll come to the objective of the site visit for the award assessment. Once again, may I please draw your attention on this aspect. We must remember that we are making an assessment of excellence of food safety, and this excellence is assessed based on the guidelines that come in the form of checklist in your application documents and the assessment format. So those are just guidelines, they are not requirements. We are doing it as per a maturity matrix. Remember the bands that we have, maturity bands. So there is scoring involved in it. There is nothing called non-conformance here. Everything is an opportunity for improvement. And reporting from a third party perspective. Now this word reporting is very important. What you as an assessor are doing is that not just, ticking them and saying yes, no, done, not done. You have to report what strengths you have seen there and what OFIs you've seen there. Why? Because there are next levels of assessments where the calibrator has to see, he or she has to compare all the reports and find out, okay, is the score, calibrated. Then comes, the awards, the awards committee. The awards committee also, looks at the report. Report means the writings. Let me tell you, the scores are indicative, but it is being ranked by the various stages of evaluators. So we must remember this is not a compliance audit of safety requirements. Hence, we are not supposed to go and write down document numbers there, saying document number so and so is showing this. No, we see that if looks of those documents, you don't, whatever you are a third party, who so you need to tell us how it is the systems. Otherwise, you have audit companies who have maximum number of certificates. That's not the purpose. We want to see that we are not looking for reports. What it must include the strengths of audit report or what the non-conformances against compliance criteria and documents in records reference. This is what we are looking for. What feedback report has to provide feedback in the status of excellence. So that is why articulating the OFIs and the strengths is key to the process. We are going to act based on what you write there, not what you score. Based on what you write there, the jury, awards committee, and the jury will decide who is the winner. So there is a lot of, onus on you. There's a lot of responsibility on you. Feedback must be well articulated so that it helps perfect independent evaluations on maturity levels and can be compared with other reports to decide winners. So if you just say something was non-conformance or this is one thing, that doesn't give us, it doesn't give the OFI set of things. On what basis did they get, 60 or 70 or 80? Consensus. The second point is that we need not only individuals, but we need the consensus remarks. The process of this has been structured in such a way that we get this important because excellence cannot get it for one person. But the perception of excellence varies from person to person, and that is expected. That is what the consensus meeting is. We really must, respect the consensus process continuously. If we capture and articulate this information, strength to verifies coordinated justifications, executive summary must reflect the key findings by assessors to the jury. What do we articulate consensus strengths and flaws? We assess in the retrospective evaluation and what are those aspects that the evaluation was what's going to review and the jury review. Measure points to capture whether the expected form is procedures and abilities to note these points and reiterate these points to all these points during the meeting with the assessors. It is also advisable to practice this particular presentation to remember these points. Sustainability. That is based management, integrated impact, negative competition is becoming so key that these aspects also sometimes get the differentiators. The result of viewer trends, customer complaints, trends, is what to look at trends. We're looking at trends of last 3 years. We're looking at root cause analysis, getting actually the trends of the customer complaints and the viewer polls. And this must be included in the feedback report, as well as the shortlisted in the presentation. Feedback must reflect if the company has been transparent. If the customer is the company or applicant. So my recommendation is actually that works together should go into the feedback report. This is an additional information which was required last year. Last meeting, the application document for the existing format. This time we are creating the application document. The senior assessor and the team must take on the factors which become applicant when they are there and presented the feedback report. This is just a reminder of what we were already doing. I would like to pay your attention to the last slide. These CII is a part of the day of the day 2 and day 3. Day 1 is the arrival date. Day 2 is the date of start of the assessment. You have to otherwise you belong on it. You will be a part of the census meeting. So you must utilize a part of the evening for sharing the findings of each day and then writing updated feedback. We also attached science study guideline for in between day 1 is the writing and then day 2 and after the writing and the particular day 2 and day 4 next time I talk about this and day 5 recording. So you will see 5 days. This is something I started last year also. But we did not find evaluate this. Once again, we follow the internal meeting results happen on the that. In that case, you will have to get the plant management to let you have yourself the opening meeting, not more than 45 minutes, where you will also make a presentation, like the a small presentation which we will provide. The presentation, like the flag, as well as the company's name, CSS name, and so on. Then comes your This can also provide you feedback in that you could add or supplement those things. Then comes the after you try back and meeting of course each assessor is allocated about 16 each. So every day there are 8 to 9 basic tests that you know recorded by the assessor or the examiner. You know, assessors meeting on the day before. On the next day, try to finish your document. It is done. Meeting for 1 hour. The assessors input the assessor and then the closing meeting is on the 8th. You don't have to share scores. You just give the overall key strength and hospitality. And okay. Again, let's share the findings right back. And then assessment is for excellence of food safety. It is not a compliance audit of food safety against requirements. When we are saying assessment of excellence, for that we have provided you with a maturity matrix. And we have provided you with guidelines which come in the form of checkpoints. Those checkpoints are not requirements, they are guidelines only. It is you who is going to identify best practices, identify the gaps related to that, with respect to the best practices and point that out. Second is that from your findings of assessment excellence, guidelines as per the maturity matrix and the maturity matrix, you need to report from a third-party perspective to the next set of evaluators. What do I mean by so that report is extremely important, because based on your report, that is what you write, the findings and the remarks, the next set of assessments or the evaluations, that is the calibrator, the awards committee and the jury is going to take the decision of who is going to be the award winner and who is going to be the winners of significant achievements, strong commitment, etc. Now, if that recording of the findings is not done well, please don't think that scoring is the one and only requirement. Scoring is initially an indication to shortlist. After that, it is what you write in there is what is important for the jury as well as the awards committee. Now, please remember, and we are saying this is not a compliance audit. So many a times we are finding that the feedback report consists that so and so process has followed document number so and so. Please don't waste time on writing references of document numbers. Please write your perception and views based on what you have seen there regarding each and every checkpoint guideline. That is, see, if a company has 5 certificates, they are not definitely, the ones who might get the award. It's those who have effective certification. Effective, by saying effective certification, we mean effective food safety practices and systems. Only those are the ones who are awarded. So number of certificates really don't matter. Well, it gives a brownie point to the applicant company, but that is not the end all and the be all. You will have to write down about the effectiveness of those processes that they have followed in their certification. Maturity bands, by and large, it remains the same. Once again, world class, then comes the advanced, competitive, basic and anecdotal. Least count of 5 must be followed. We are not looking for audit reports. What are audit reports generally? I said audit reports are primarily reporting non-conformances against mandatory compliance criteria, and it records the document and records references. But this is not what we are looking for. The feedback report should provide findings of the unit's status on food safety excellence through their OFIs and the strengths. So articulation of these is most important. If you have well articulated, you have done justice to your role as an assessor and a senior assessor. And because only if you articulate it, can it be compared against other reports, and the award winner can be decided fairly. Consensus remarks, once again, the consensus process is very important. So please don't, allocate just half a day to the consensus process. You cannot complete, it's not possible to complete a consensus process in half a day. The consensus process is almost a 12 to 13 hours exercise. This is, like if you really, it's just plain simple mathematics. There are about, say 50 or 50 checkpoints. Now, if there are 3 assessors, each of you will have to take up, about 16 to 17 checkpoints to write down, and then see it together on that last day, modify them, do an individual scoring, do a consensus scoring, then make the, executive summary. So consensus is important. Why? Because excellence, excellence is perceived as different things by different people. So that debate needs to happen within that within that team of professionals who are the assessors, and then decide, what to put in there and how to assess that excellence with the scoring as well, or justify the score with whatever you write there. Please justify the score with articulated findings. Why do we need to articulate? As I mentioned, you have 3 more steps of evaluation. That is the calibration process, awards committee review, and the jury review. Again, your report is most critical out here, what you write there. Now, additional points to capture is recall procedures and traceability. Please go in depth on this and articulate your findings on these 2. Articulate your findings on waste management, ETP management, environmental impact. You must also articulate rework trends. It's not just rework. Many a times you find, findings like this, that rework is done as per procedure so and so, but no, that is not what we want. We want to say, find out, what has been the rework trend over the last 3 years. How have they addressed bringing down the rework? How have they addressed that rework is not contaminating? So these are customer complaints. What has been this over the last 3 years? Has it reduced over the last 3 years? If it has reduced, what was done to reduce it? What all processes have been put in place to reduce it? So these are the kind of information we are looking at. Please do go in depth. If you look at scrap segregation, how has the scrap, how is it getting segregated? Is there an improvement in the scrap segregation process? Is there an improvement in the collection and disposal of the scrap? So please look at those points as well. Now, the feedback reports should also reflect if the organization is transparent enough to host consumer visits, to host, visits for delegates, for customers. Okay, compile recommendation on best practices for the industry. This is the environmental impact slide that has been introduced this year. It is quite self-explanatory. It gives information about carbon dioxide emission, power consumption, water consumption, etc. So this must be filled in by the applicant organization and submitted to the, and this forms part of the feedback report. We have included it in the application format this year. The code of conduct to be followed remains the same. Of course, no gifts from applicants' companies. That is the second bullet point. That could be mentioned when the senior assessor is, establishing contact with the applicant company right in the beginning. What I want to bring to your attention is that the last bullet point, the senior assessor must ensure that evenings are there for sharing the findings of each day and then writing the allocated feedback. These are only preparations for the consensus meeting, for an effective consensus meeting. Okay. We have provided the site visit planning guidelines, for a 3-member team. Day 1 is arriving. Day 2, 3, 4 are for the actual, day 2 and 3 is for the assessment. Day 4 is for the consensus, and day 5 is depart. So you actually, have you need a 5-day release from the company, from your own company. It starts with the internal meeting between assessors, and we have also said whether the SSC is required or not. In the first row, if you see, rather third row, the third row says you will not have the SSC. That is the time in the internal meeting between assessors, you discuss what will be the modus operandi, how would you, go ahead, what are the critical concerns of that particular sector, what could be the product standards, what more do you need to focus on more, which would be the priority issues, of that particular unit. Opening meeting, not more than 45 minutes. This time, for the opening meeting, we are going to provide you with a PowerPoint presentation which needs to be customized only with respect to your names, company name, and the actual site visit plan. So I'm going to provide you with that template, as well as most of the slides would be filled in by me itself. So you can use this as your opening meeting presentation. So your presentation should be about not more than 10 minutes. The senior assessor will make the presentation 10 minutes. Then after that, let them make a presentation for about 30 minutes, for about 20 minutes or so. And then there's a question answer session if they want some clarifications. Totally it shall not go beyond, 45 minutes. Then the walk around the plant. This is one of the most critical start points. If you are able to restrict your walk around the plant to about 1 hour to 1.5 hours, a lot, can happen. Then you can, progress a lot on that day. Let me tell you the objective of that walk around the plant. The objective is to just get an idea of the process flow and the layout of the plant. And layout means what is where. How is it? It just gives you an overview. Please, and that you do it together. Don't ask too many questions here on the processes itself. Why? Because each of you are going to come back to your sections, once again to that plant for detailed investigation. So please do not waste this time to understanding a process. And if it is a huge company, then please ask them to provide with a car. You can just go around all the units, maybe the ETP, the utilities room, the actual production site. You can take the car and go around it. So this is number 1 point. Let me just share with you, I did 7 assessments myself, and that was not only in one sector. I covered about 4 sectors last year, and in all 4, we were able to complete it within 1.5 hours, max. In some, it was just 1 hour. And there were huge plans also. Okay, then comes the top management commitment that you look at, it's about a half an hour. Then the section ABC, then the assessor split and they look at it. But again, another key point is that try to finish by 4 o'clock on day 1. Why? Because again, if you go until 6 o'clock, you will just be able to capture maybe a little bit more, but you will not be able to write it down on the report, and then it serves no purpose. So you need time to articulate what, and then there's a sharing of findings also. I will tell you exactly, how to allocate the work so that everybody gets a chance to see everything. And when, like supposing I am the one who's done HACCP and I talk about HACCP, but you would have possibly, assessor number 2 would have looked at PRP and in the process also looked at the CCP monitoring and all that, because it's all part of that. The person who was doing the management system structure would also have, seen the sector specific GMP. In the process, he also would have had an idea about what, how the HACCP is getting implemented there. So everybody can provide an input to each and every section, almost each and every section, when they share the findings, either in the drive down in the car from the plant to the hotel, or sitting separately together in the hotel to share the findings. And then the articulation should start. Let me tell you, unfortunately, last year we did find a few, who followed this process meticulously, and definitely their reports were of a much higher quality. I mean, lesser intervention was required, later on with the senior assessor during the calibration process. Okay, so this is the way. So that is why, we thought that we'll provide you with this breakup, which we also provided you last year. But I just needed to bring this to your attention once again. Again, in the next day, the section D, which you do together, continuation, try to finish it by 3. Okay, and you have also, started writing down, so you would know what the gaps are. Try to finish this by 3. Remember, that is the time allocated to you, and time management can only happen with very good homework. So 3 to 4, the closing meeting preparation, all the assessors are going to, provide inputs to the senior assessor, who will make that presentation in the closing meeting, not more than half an hour, and it is strictly like this. It is on that, in a 5-day assessment, it is on day 3. That is before the consensus meeting. Please strictly follow this as much as possible. So, because if, I don't want any one of you all to, allocate a visit on that last day. It will encroach, it will poach into your consensus meeting time, which is one of the most important processes in this particular assessment. Okay, then comes the closing meeting, half an hour. In the closing meeting, no scores should be shared. There should not be a PowerPoint presentation, and they must be told only about their key strengths, key OFIs, thank them for the hospitality, ensure confidentiality, talk about that appeal system once again, and that's it, over. You come back, and again the individual work has to be there, by all the assessors, including the senior assessors. So the day 4 is the consensus meeting. See, we have said that start the day by 10 a.m. We had started it by 9 a.m. and it actually went up to, about 21 hours, 9 a.m. to 9 to 9. And see, by 9 a.m., all sections should have been attempted once, by the individual assessors on their allocate. So all the write-ups are all there. That is together, shown on the screen. So the assessor, senior assessor, has to ask for the LCD projector and a proper meeting room on that, consensus meeting day. That is that day 4. And they see it together, and the consensus process is followed. Individual contribution, then also the executive summary must be prepared on that day itself, on a Word document. Each assessor contributes his or her section summary, what they think should appear in the executive summary, that's the key strengths and OFIs, from the report itself, a summary of that, copy paste it on a Word document and provide it to the senior assessor, who puts it together. So he gets a quick, objective draft of the executive summary. Okay. Now you see, the allocation of the assessors have been done in such a way that each assessor gets to see the factory quite in details. See, the one who is doing the PRP, as it is, has to spend a lot of time in the factory. Assessors must not spend too much time in the conference room, during the assessment process. It's basically a to and fro check. Some documentations are checked to understand the process, but more time should be spent on the factory floor. See, Assessor B is looking at the HACCP part of it. So this is also a factory exercise. You have to go to the floor to see the CCP monitoring, to see the, the recording that they do, the operator's knowledge on it. So this is also, so Assessor B is also getting to go to the factory. Now Assessor B is also looking possibly at the change management initiatives. So change management initiatives here, when we show it as B, it means that B is only responsible for the articulation, that is writing the findings in the feedback report. But section D has to be assessed by everybody when they go to their respective positions to do the assessment, and that contribution is collected in the evening, and assessor B is articulating it. So then comes section, the assessor C is doing sector specific GMP. Again, for sector specific GMP, he has to go to the factory floor. Now if you see, all three assessors, A, B, C, has visited the factory floor and looked at details of the food safety systems and practices. Now, when you share the findings in the evening, supposing you've done it on the PRP, supposing assessor A has done it for the PRP, when assessor A shares the findings on the PRP, assessor B and C will also be able to make some contributions in it. Okay. See, and we put assessor C, who has done sector specific GMP. This part is has more, documentation assessment also. There are a lot of plus also there is a lot of factory work, but it's, I think, 50-50. So assessor C has already done the sector specific GMP. Exposure to the factory floor has been there. So if you actually allocate the work this way, everyone gets a chance to see the factory floor and investigate it. Okay, the broad elements, whatever I have discussed, has been summarized in the slide number 47, and applicants to be requested to provide a meeting room, LCD projector screen for the consensus meeting of the assessors on day 4. So this has to be, and this should be there from 8:30 to 21 hours. Another common practical problem we have is that, if you ask for it from 10 o'clock, the setup, compatibility, those issues crop up sometimes. And so please tell them to get that ready and check whether it's working or not, the LCD projector, the screen, as well as your own laptop from 8:30 onwards. Only then you can start it at 9 or 10. Okay, opening meeting. I will provide you with the PPT for the opening meeting presentation. And as you know, I just explained the opening meeting to you. I will not harp on it once again. Senior assessor is to do that. Now, presentation by the applicant at the opening meeting. The senior assessor can communicate to the applicant company that they could make a presentation. Please encourage this presentation. This presentation of their process flow, of their key strengths, of the challenges they face, of the good work that they have been doing on mistake proofing, on the technology changes that they have made. It will provide you with a very good overview, before you start the assessment process. And you can also request them, if it is not too classified information, so that, you can carry it back. Showing such a, a presentation in a jury meeting also helps the applicant company a lot, for the jury also to understand, what they have been doing. So they can provide you with they can provide the senior assessor with a copy of an edited version, if that is the way they want it. Otherwise, they can, and it could also contain, photographs of the processes they have, which they feel can be shared. But definitely, this is not a mandatory requirement, but a very good practice from the applicant's side. The closing meeting, half an hour. I have mentioned already earlier that there should be no presentations and no scores should be mentioned. Right. Then comes the consensus meeting. The consensus meeting is that day 4. Please don't switch this. Closing meeting should never be done after the consensus meeting. Okay. Individual work and consensus process. Individual work is done in the evenings. Almost 16 sections per person must be allocated, for the writing down as well as the assessment. Consensus work, I think I've just here, I have already, articulated what all we discussed just now, so that this remains, recorded for you also. There is one point I did not discuss, that is that bullet number 4. If your score belongs, when during the, consensus scoring process, if your score belongs to a different band, or band means advanced, world class, basic, advanced, competitive, that is what I mean by different band. If your score belongs to a different band, or there is a difference of more than 10 in the scores of each section, the assessors need to discuss their justification and modify the write-up accordingly. Also modify the score, because if you find that after discussion, the range so far as of now has always been less than 10 then. 10 or less than 10. So all scores are done in percentages. You just have to, for the sections, you just have to put percentage scores, and this will automatically reflect in the score summary sheet. You don't have to worry about, what is the weightage and all that is incorporated in the score summary sheet. And we have also simplified the scoring process. I'll just come to that. Okay. Also, you need to remember that score bands are provided to the jury to offset variation between assessors. So, no exact scores are provided to the jury or the awards committee. That is to take care of that, because we are also, allowing a 10% variation. So we allow that, we provide the score bands in 10% variation. It doesn't matter. That is the way it is presented to the jury. They don't get the exact score. They just get the score band. Now, I think I have discussed this. Again, this is just summarizing whatever we have discussed for the consensus meeting. Consensus meeting and finalization of feedback report. This also I have discussed OFIs and strengths against 49 points, individual consensus scores. Executive summary must be completed on the last day. Most of the time we find that senior assessors are taking back the work on the executive summary. Once again, it is the assessors should contribute and come up with their views on what they feel should be reflected in the executive summary, the key strengths and the key OFIs. That consensus has to be there. So that is why we said, we provided a template of the executive summary. Please follow that template by the book. Okay. Right. This is the consensus meeting. Basically, it could, day 3 means we should really put it as day 4. I'm sorry for this mistake. Consensus meeting is on day 4 because we have said day 1 is the day we arrive. Please make a note of this. My consensus meeting is on day 4. Right. Scores and maturity band. If the checkpoint deserves world-class scores, mention the world-class strength. That is going to help the jury to decide whether it is really world-class or not. Okay, please just don't put 90 or 95. Please say what is that world-class strength. And possibly they will have no OFIs. For a world-class score, there may be no OFIs. But for anything below a world-class score, that is below 90, there has to be some OFI which will justify that they have not got the world class. So if it deserves advanced score level, mention the strength as well as the OFI which clearly describes what more was required to achieve world class or the next level. Okay, some examples we have given. Please remember when you're filling in the report, please fill in the yes, no, not applicable, partly part of it, and then write down the findings. If you see, in this finding, this is the old format we had, where at the bottom, there was the highest possible score and the evaluated score, weightage and obtained percentage. All right, it was becoming a little possibly, confusing for people. Now we have changed this to a format like this. Obtained percentage 85. So as assessors, for every section, after you have the consensus and also on an individual basis, you need to put down the percentage score that you think that section deserves. So everything is scored on 100. It will automatically get reflected in the score summary. Okay. So given some examples, you can have a look at it later. Quite articulate. And it gives us an idea why he scored it 75 or why he scored it 80, why he scored it 85. He means the team. I'm sorry, it's a team. Hazardous. So this is something you can look at, as samples. Okay. Broad content of the executive summary for the feedback report. It should include the company and the unit name, introduction, criteria of assessment. You can do it on this format itself. See the blue ones in criteria of assessment and assured confidentiality. These two you will, not have to touch. because we will write a paragraph, 2-3 lines on each of them. So that remains in the template. So please follow that template. Use that template. You will have these 2 sections written down already. And the others would just have, something like this, company and unit name. So you need to put down whatever is, given here. And the introduction must be made from the company profile. Then comes the overall scoring. We'll provide a band also. Then name of the senior assessor, assessor team members, their companies, dates of assessment. Now comes the most important one, that is the role of the senior assessor. The role of the senior assessor, we thought we would articulate it for you this time. Establish contact with the assessor team applicant prior to the site visit on 3 aspects. One is the site visit dates, one is the site visit plan, and the other is travel and stay. He connects with his team members. Basically, he connects with his team members. He connects the team members to the applicant only when travel details need to be worked out. That is at that stage, not before that. Before that, he is a single window, to contact the applicant. Do background work on the sector and the product. So if you are in a dairy, if you've been allocated a dairy company, you would need to do some background work on that particular dairy sector. Find out the product standard requirements, the concerns and the challenges and the advances in food safety practices, systems, technologies, and other good and bad practices. What generally happens, what is a general industry practice, and what are the best practices. This homework needs to be done. Carry a laptop and ensure all team members carry their laptops. So the senior assessor must also remind the assessors that they have to carry a laptop, to do their evening work. Check whether the assessment format, before going to the assessment, we will send you the assessment format. Please check whether it works on your laptop. That means the scoring is coming in. If you have any, glitches, please do get in touch with me. I will provide you with a fresh copy. Okay. Allocate process owners in discussion with the team members. This is also done before the site visit. Let me tell you, I was quite surprised to hear that, there were a few teams who were visiting without a concrete site visit plan. Everything was getting discussed at the site itself as to who was going to do what. Please do not, that is not the way it should get done. We have to be professional. That is why I have been supplying you with, providing you with these site visit plan guidelines. You can actually customize the same format and send it to them. Complete the reporting of your allocated sections through the evening work on day 2 and day 3. Provide guidance to team members on evening work on day 2 and day 3. Now, role of the senior assessor continued. He has to lead the briefing meeting. The briefing meeting is that, internal meeting which happens prior to the start of the site visit, which is done either in the car or in the breakfast table of your day 2. Opening meeting is done on day 2. Closing meeting is done on day 3. Facilitate consensus meeting on day 4. The senior assessor has to, facilitate this whole consensus meeting, following the right process. Ensure appropriateness of articulated findings. Please challenge the findings, whether, it is written properly, whether it is justifying the score, whether all the strengths and OFIs have been written or not, when you see it together on the projector. But before that, the appropriateness of the articulated findings must be checked on, day 2 as well as day 3 evenings. Because let me tell you, all assessment teams have a mix of maybe 1 experienced and 2 inexperienced people. Inexperienced means inexperienced in the assessment. So, the senior assessor needs to guide them as to how to write. Show them some samples. Share this with them. Once again, go through it once again as to how the articulation has to be there. Check 1 or 2 samples of their articulations. Provide them with that guidance in the evening so that they can carry on with their work by themselves, on day 2 and day 3. Share the executive summary must be completed in the consensus meeting itself. Share the complete report with the team members. Before you leave, please share whatever reports has been, evolved, the score, the complete report, the executive summary with the rest of the team members. They should be given soft copies. Submission to CII phase within 7 days. Request you to please go by this. First of all, if it goes beyond 7 days, you will also forget. Next is that, CII has to consolidate so many reports, do a data analysis. So that is a huge process, before submitting it to the awards committee. So if you are taking, more than 7 days, it becomes very difficult to do justice to this whole process. Interact with the calibrator. There will be a calibrator who will, be in touch with you as required and modify the report in discussion. So the calibrator will go through the report, see whether these are justified or not, and then, will get in touch with the senior assessor, who in turn gets in touch with the team members, and this is known as the second phase of assessment. Then maybe, he needs to prepare jury presentation if this particular assessment has been shortlisted. And then the senior assessor also has to make a presentation to the jury, either through a video conference or a con call. Role of the assessor. First thing, carry laptop, check whether the assessment format works, establish contact with the senior assessor prior to the site visit. So the moment you get your team, please contact the senior assessor and be in touch with him, to decide all these dates and etc. Work out a site visit plan. Tell him, do a background work. Connect with the applicant only when senior assessor provides a go-ahead for working out travel details. Propose preferences of process ownership of the sections to the senior assessor. This means like someone might want to do the PRP. Someone might want to do the sector-specific GMP and the change management initiatives. Someone might want to do the HACCP part of it. So please, communicate that, and the site visit plan will be made accordingly. Complete the reporting of your allocated section to the evening works on day 2 and day 3. Assessors, this is my ardent plea to you. Please work on those evenings of day 2, day 3 to make the consensus process a big success and participate in the consensus meeting. Ensure appropriateness, participate in the individual and consensus scoring, contribute your section to the executive summary in the consensus meeting. As I mentioned to you, copy paste the key strengths and the key OFIs from your allocated section. Each assessor can do that. Copy paste it in a Word format. Make a small gist of it and provide that to the senior assessor. This is the quickest way to complete a objective draft of the executive summary. After this, the senior assessor can put in the introduction, he can put in a flow, he can dot the I's and cross the T's, and accordingly, he can make it. But at least he gets an objective point, he gets the objective points on what to put in that executive summary. Interact with the senior assessor as required and modify report during the second phase of assessment. Even after you go back, the senior assessor might call you, for some clarifications. Please cooperate with him. Now the key dates are by April 25th, letter of intent to CII phase. We are collecting that. Submission of applicant document should be by May 15th, and you should hear from us by May 3rd week about which team you are getting allocated to. And site visits will be between June to August 30th. Now I have again another suggestion to you. Please don't push everything to August. Please, please note that there can be emergencies. Please start doing it from June itself. Try to get dates in June. Some of us are doing about 7 to 8 assessments. So flexibilities may not be there with all your assessor team members. Some of you are doing 2. I know many companies are releasing the assessors to do 3 also. Some have released assessors to do 4. So these are the kind of assessors who will not have much flexibility. So please do start your assessment from June. Don't push it to August. Applicant companies have a tendency of pushing it to August. If you push it to August and some emergency like a flood or something happens, you will not be able to complete that assessment. Let me tell you, unfortunately last year, 2 such assessments could not happen because they were scheduled in August, and after that we could not give them time. And there were some natural calamities which took place, but we were not able to provide them with that time for assessment. So award announcement is on December 2nd this year. We have the summit on December 2nd and 3rd, and dispatch of feedback requests will be made promptly on December 15th. The award announcement will come on December 9th, and it will be clubbed as always with the Food Safety and Quality Summit. This time we are having the 9th Food Safety and Quality Summit, which has the Gala Awards Night, the felicitation of assessors. Our summits share the best practices and the updates, and our summits also have the exposition. So these are clubbed together. This is the summit, 9th summit. As you see, the 9th summit is on excellence in food safety and quality for consumer safety and competitiveness. Every participating assessor will be given a free pass, to come and attend the summit and also the awards function. Also, every applicant will be given 2 free passes, to attend the summit and the awards gala night. The webinar presentation will be shared with you. We are also providing some sector-specific GMPs, which we are not really taking responsibility of. These were evolved by the people at the assessors who came for the assessor training courses, but we would like to share some of these with you. So we will share this and we will upload this in this particular presentation along with the sector-specific GMPs which come later on. With this presentation itself, we will upload this in my CII in, and the details of accessing the same will be communicated to you shortly. So the question answer session begins now. Please write your questions. I shall respond to them. Hello, I'm not able to bring this. Here, this one now. Yes. Yes. Okay. Yes, Mr. Ganesh Kamath has written. I think let me go by it one by one. And, yes. No, don't mute it. Don't mute it. I'm going to answer to these questions. Just give me a moment. I'm just going through the questions and see where I can start. Okay. Last year, I think the first question is from Mr. Ganesh Kamath. Last year we had a huge shortage of assessors. Do we have any improvement plan this year? Let me tell you, we have since last year added 20 and maybe another 15 would be added. This is my estimation. We did, you see, we need more assessors. That's a fact. And we will need the support of the industry, and we'll have to see exactly how to do it. We will take in consultants. We've empaneled some consultants also for the process, but I'm still not sure whether it will meet the, the supply will meet the demand. We'll have to work on this. Okay, fully agree for saying it is a review, not an audit. Shall be reflected to access also. Sometimes the corporate involvement in it has created a lot of discussion. Okay. Could you please provide some examples of mistake proofing? Mistake proofing, like maybe hand wash, foot wash. These are some of the mistake proofings where the flow diversion valve for controlling the temperatures. Then auto ejection. This is on mistake proofing I'm talking about. See, auto ejections of, say, non-labeled packages. These are known as the mistake proofing technologies. Mr. Yogendra, if you can see the training material that was provided in the assessor training last year, we have quite a few slides on mistake proofing. Even the last year's refresher course, we had a lot of slides on mistake proofing. Please go through that. Okay. Basically, it's mistake proofing for food safety. Thanks a lot, madam, for refreshing the course. Okay. Manju says, I have missed the initial part. If there's any significant change in the assessment checklist as compared to last year. Manju, you will, nice to hear from you too. You will receive this presentation. So I think if you go through this presentation, you would hear this time we have introduced 2 new sectors also, and some scoring has been attached to the statutory regulatory requirement only for, you know, for criteria 1 and criteria 5 and criteria 4. The 2 and 3 remains the same. Criteria 2 and 3 remains the same. When would you receive communication for assessment from you? You would receive this communication, we are estimating, by mid-May. By mid-May, you should be receiving them, if not earlier. How will you rate if environment impact table is not maintained by the applicant organization? No problem. Just say that data was not available, but you must give it, but it will not reflect well on the organization. If they've not done it, you don't have to manufacture data. Just say data not available, or they are not able to provide this data. For those who provide this data, it will be brownie points for them. Yeah, I think, yeah, mistake proofing example, Sachin Vivek says that mistake proofing example, use of FTV, flow diversion valve and pasteurizer with alarm facility. I think that is what I also mentioned there. Right. How will you inspect all clauses of ISO FSSC 22000 in case of warehouse assessment, which is included in this year's assessment? Okay, you will see we have customized, you know, all of FSSC, first of all, is not applicable to warehouses. The warehousing criteria is much more simpler. So the checkpoints are, you know, all given there. There is some risk assessment also there, but it is quite different from our FSSC 22000. Mr. Gupta, you will, if you are given that allocation of a warehouse assessment, I think that checklist will help you a lot in understanding this. Madam, can you send site sector specific GMP samples to? I am going to send. There are some GMP samples, you know, in this presentation, which is just coming after the slide. I will this you can access through the link that we will provide to you shortly. We will upload it in our MyCII and you will get that information very shortly. Okay, total assessment time for senior assessor is substantial, including jury presentation, and if we need to do more than one assessment, it will become tough to manage the time and our professional commitment. Request you to consider this situation while planning the assessments this year. I suppose, yes, Mr. Kamath, you are right. So if we will see how to allocate this work, so that, you know, not more than 2 are given to at least the industry people. We ourselves are taking up many more. You know, the in-house resources of FACE is taking up many more assessments. We take up minimum of 6 assessments. There was somebody who did 10 last year, but then of course we wouldn't burden you with so much. I think doing 2 as an industry volunteer would be wonderful. Can you share some photos showing excellency in the process? You see, most of the time, photographs are meant only for the jury and they are not shared, but we'll have to, yes, we can do it. We will take permission, we will seek permission from the applicant companies, and this year we are also proposing to you, you know, to request for photographs which they can share, you know, with the jury and the awards committee. This would be given to the assessors by the applicants. You could request for it, but don't press on it if they don't want to. telling them that it would be useful for the jury panels, and then we'll have to seek their permission to share it with others. Otherwise, no, we can't do it. There's a confidentiality agreement. We would not be able to do that. Okay, Mr. Yogendra Kumar has said, will the FBO comply the statutory requirement if a FBO manufacturing and proprietary product applies for renewal of license before expiry of validity and does not get its renewed license even after expiry? The application process itself will be fine, because there is nothing, the unit can, the FBO can do about it. That will definitely be considered, by the assessor team. Because if their license is not getting renewed because of a stay order, it's no problem for the company. Only we have to see that the application has been made or not. Okay, can assessment be supported by evidence? Yes, definitely. But evidence should not be a document number. The assessment is evident. In your strengths and OFIs, you're only writing evidences. You're not writing anything else. I hope I'm clear, Mr. Gupta, or would you like to reword that question, or was I clear to you? Reword, please. Okay, the question from Mr. Mukesh Gupta is, can assessment be supported by evidence? Assessments always have to be supported by evidence. What is the evidence? Evidence is the strength and the opportunities for improvement that you are writing under each section. That itself is the evidence. Yes, certainly. Your assessment has to be supported by evidence. Any other questions? Please consider feedback for assessors while selecting team. Yes, certainly, Mr. Apte. Unfortunately, we do not have too many people who provide the feedback on the assessors. Because this is one thing that the senior assessor has to collect. The feedback from the assessors on their assessor team. It's a confidential document, but there is a feedback form that is given to all assessors. So one is that the assessors have a feedback, provide a feedback on their assessor team members, and another one is that when the companies provide feedback on the assessors. Other than a few, 2-3 companies, other companies have not provided the feedback. So we do request them, but we really can't, force it. We will again try to see how we can make this happen. It's very important, at least for the senior assessor, to collect the feedback of everybody along with his own and send it, which I know, Mr. Apte, you do meticulously. Thank you so much.